Have you ever been in that awkward conversation with friends or colleagues where you are the only person that doesn't have the slightest idea of what everybody is talking about, but you still nod, smile, struggle to blend in and pretend you're following? Why is that? Why is it so hard for you to just say, guys, I'm sorry, but I don't know what you're talking about. Can you explain? It is so hard to show we don't understand and ask somebody to explain that most of the times what we do instead is building our own interpretation based on the bits and pieces of information we captured and simply hold on to the story we made for ourselves. It is so painful for us humans to get our beliefs disproven that we don't even dare asking questions that might risk falsifying our hypothesis. So we just stick to our internal narrative. This is so common that it even has a name. It's called congruence bias. But is it just that? Is it just about social conformity? Is it just about avoiding the spotlight effect and the pain of speaking out? We live in a world where we always have to know everything. At work, at school, with friends, with people we date. It feels as if what we know is constantly under scrutiny. The more stuff we know, the smarter we look to others. We are under this constant pressure to impress others with our knowledge. But why is that? Well, because human societies were literally built on the power of knowledge. Humans have been so successful precisely because they are extremely good at making sense of the world. They turn that interpretation into useful information that gets shared with other fellow humans. That's essentially our history, the compound effect of knowledge accumulated over millennia. So the more things you know, the more useful you are for society, the more appreciated you are, the more impact you have on others. This is totally human. We have this fascination with people that know stuff, or at least that give the impression of knowing stuff. We equate knowledge to wisdom, thus trustworthiness. This is because in hunter-gatherer societies, the individuals that possessed more information were the ones that got followed. Why? Because more information was associated with a higher chance of survival. Knowing where to find shelter, how to hide from predators, which fruits were poisonous, literally meant the difference between life and death. Okay, so seems like plainly admitting you simply don't know is always a bad idea. But is it really? Actually, this tendency that we have to hide our ignorance has some serious consequences. First, let's talk about the illusion of knowledge. Oftentimes, we think we know much more than we actually do. This is because, as humans, we are accustomed to rely on other humans' knowledge. If it's not me knowing, I can always ask somebody else or Google. They surely know. This tendency to rely on the collective knowledge has been shaped by evolution and demonstrated to be actually quite successful, but it comes at the cost of promoting group behavior. It makes us lean towards behaving not like single individuals with our own distinct ideas and thoughts, but rather as part of a group with which we share some common understanding. This way, we unfortunately more easily fall into the trap of relying on falsehood that is accepted by the larger group we identify with, rather than challenging it with our own true ideas. Secondly, our fascination with people that seem to know stuff has the consequence that we ourselves often prefer shallow knowledge instead of in-depth, real understanding of the subject. This is because we subconsciously know that in most situations it's more important to show that we know rather than actually knowing. This, unfortunately, also applies to the way our knowledge is tested in schools, universities, and job interviews. It's far easier to access shallow knowledge than in-depth understanding. So much so that in several occasions that's the only focus of exams and interviews. But in our problematic relationship with knowledge and understanding, we have to fear not, as long as we can resort to an obscure yet unfailing power, the power of ignorance. Ignorance is the engine of knowledge. Ignorance is the trigger of learning. Once I realize and accept I don't know, I can set my mind to it and figure it out. Ignorance gets me going. Else, if I pretend I know, then I become static and stop learning. If you don't acknowledge your ignorance, start making questions and try and get answers to those questions, all you're left with is trusting what others tell you. If you don't make space for doubt, you cannot make time to experiment and explore, then you cannot possibly learn. Ignorance puts us in exploration mode. We should exploit ignorance. The realization of the important role that ignorance plays in the process of learning is nothing new. I know that I know nothing. This is a quote that Plato attributes to Socrates. This quote is the ultimate acknowledgement of the vastness of what we don't know by a man considered to be the wisest man in Athens, which at the time essentially meant wisest man on earth. But why was a man admitting complete ignorance considered to be the wisest? Because deep within the realization of ignorance resides the humbleness required to put in all the effort and hard work that comes with learning. That humbleness is what we should cultivate. Recently, I came across this intriguing idea from the book The Black Swan by Taleb, a book which I absolutely recommend and I'll link below. The idea is that of the antilibrary.
Taleb writes, the writer Umberto Eco is the owner of a large personal library containing 30,000 books and separates visitors into two categories. Those who react with, "Wow, signore professore dottore Eco, what a library you have. How many of these books have you read?" And the others, a very small minority who get the point that a private library is not an ego-boosting appendage, but a research tool. The library should contain as much of what we do not know as your financial means allow you to put there. Indeed, the more you know, the larger the rows of unread books. Let us call this collection of unread books an anti-library. We tend to treat our knowledge as a personal property to be protected and defended. It is an ornament that allows us to rise in the pecking order.
People go around flexing their cum laude college degrees, their MBAs, their PhDs, their certification, their fellowships, which should be the proof of what they know. Whereas Taleb goes as far as to say that it'd be nice if people would walk around with entire resumes. Why? Because the real fun happens as we explore the unending vastness of what we don't know. Hope you found this useful. If yes, you know what to do, right? Right? Give it a nice push to that like button. Just do it. Do it.
Do it. Do it.
Thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one. Cheers.